to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 19th day of February. It's good to be back on the program today, folks. We've had a snow day here in Nashville. My offices for the day job got closed today. I knew they were going to be closed yesterday, so I had to work extra, do a little extra Ubering yesterday to make up for today's loss of pay. That's why you didn't have a show yesterday and Monday. And listen, I've got part of the sacrifice of this program is to have to work side jobs around my normal schedule. So you're probably going to get 2 shows a week. That could change here for the next 5, 6, 7 weeks. I've got huge taxes to pay and all that stuff. So, but you'll have some good replays here, great interviews, and I may have an extra show here and there. For example, I was reading Jenny Paul's The Yankee Prince. Read about a good 30, 40 pages of that today. What was on 50 pages? Yeah, about 30-something pages of that today. I'll have guests like her and Ken Burton, the comedian. I'm going to try to reach back out to him again, maybe bring him on. Of course, Jamie Paggs, the Philly sports guy as well. And but this is all part of my sacrifice. I cut part of my route off to do this show 5 days a week. Now I'm having to make up some money issues, but that's okay, though. That's all part of it. It's all part of the journey. And tomorrow, just got clarification, probably for the next few weeks, till further notice, the Mad New Yorker will be on Thursdays live with me at the program, and we'll talk about the week's biggest stories, and instead of Fridays. And like I said, we'll replay stuff during the other 3 days of the program. So got a great show with you on for tonight. How to fix this NBA. I've never heard this much criticism. Now you have current players. Draymond Green said something over the weekend about the NBA. I want to comment on that. A few of you have heard my suggestions before, but what I've done tonight, I've put them all together. I'm going to talk about that. Vladimir Guerrero, I'm getting, and I said this before time and time again, I'm talking more and more about baseball on this program. The ratings have picked back up. There have been some changes here. It's piqued my interest. You all know I love to talk free agency, particularly in baseball and the NBA, and obviously NFL, of course. But Vlad Guerrero Jr. will be a free agent in November. Talk about some possible landing spots for him. Story back over the weekend. Jonathan Martin. Got a take on that. Him and the Richie Incognito. That's about a 10-year-old story. Kind of resurfaced over the past few days here, and got a different take than a lot of people. Got a different take on that and more. And I got a few other news and notes. NFL's got a higher salary cap up to $281. I'll comment on that as well and more. Stand by. Let's take our first and only break, and we'll be back here running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, @gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching The Sharp Dressed Man and the Big Story Breaker Robert Butler on SportsScope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
All righty, then I'm back here live. It's always good to be back on the program, everybody. I tell you what, this topic has been on my mind all weekend leading up to today, which is Wednesday, the 19th here. You've got even Draymond Green, of all people, calling the NBA boring. You got guys like Eddie Johnson, former NBA pro, saying, listen, hey, he's got a good point, you know? And then, of course, you have other you know what? And then you got Oscar Robertson calling out Draymond Green, former all-time NBA great as well. This is the most criticism when you get this much. There's been more talk about the NBA trades. There's been more criticism of the NBA going back to November of last year with the ratings plummet here. The All-Star, we're still in the All-Star weekend. I'm not going to say the NBA starts back either tonight or tomorrow. I think it starts back tomorrow, but it might tonight because I know that the Hornets are going to play the Lakers in some kind of a revenge game. I was looking at that. But we're in the middle of the All-Star break here. And the ratings were way down for the All-Star game. It's turned into a circus. It's turned into an embarrassment. Let's see. Let me see the numbers here for this All-Star game. Way down. Way down. This was before. Of course, we were talking about this prior to the All-Star break here. 4.7 million people watched the All-Star game on Sunday. 80% down from viewership. Clay Travis put that out there. Now, so you look at that and then you listen up to, here's Draymond Green talking about the game in general. Listen up.
Who can run faster? Who can hit more threes? It's no substance. I think it's very boring.
Who cares what Draymond says? It doesn't mean anything. It might be boring.
The second half of that is Oscar Robertson saying, listen, he don't even know what he's talking about. He's boring. Only thing he does is throw the ball to Steph Curry. Listen.
Who can run faster? Who can hit more threes? It's no substance. I think it's very boring.
Who cares what Draymond says? It doesn't mean anything. It might be boring to him because if he's not passing the ball to Curry, what is he doing? He's passed his ball to Curry more than anyone I've ever seen in basketball. It might be boring to him at times because for what he's doing, maybe it is boring. When he's out there, he's not shooting a lot, he's not guarding a lot, so it's boring.
and to piggyback on what Draymond Green said, Eddie Johnson, I think he's like a 15-year. Former NBA pro, he says Draymond's 100% right. We run one pick 95% of the time. I love watching the picks. I think it's like football. You're blocking, pick and roll, space, pick and target. Off the ball plays are non-existent. He says players are being used like robots and given a title 3-and-D. What the heck is that? I was a ball player. The physicality is gone. So, yes, you've got to bring back the physicality of the game. I think you should bring back hand checking. So, here's my suggestion. How to fix the NBA. like I said, we know Barkley and Shaq have been, mainly Barkley, have been dogging out the NBA for years, and you've got Stephen A. Smith and Colin Cowherd. And I just mentioned I've played the Draymond Green bit here. Okay, so here are a few suggestions. Number one, there's too much entitlement in the NBA, way over the top. Ben Simmons, for example, going back a few years, wanted to get paid for not showing up due to guaranteed contracts. Guess the Philly sports guy out of Philadelphia mentioned a few weeks ago back that Ben Simmons rule should be put into the new CBA, okay, where you give the owners and management a little bit of flexibility. I mentioned, I think a few weeks ago also, Kyrie Irving quitting on multiple teams, lack of effort, looking for excuses not to play. Remember the Jimmy Butler behavior. Make it non-guaranteed contracts. Listen up. Play this one more time here. This was just a few weeks ago. Kevin Garnett saying they probably will go to no non-guarantees in the new season.
Open up for all this right here, bro. This is how non-guarantees are going to come into our league right here for shit like this. We fucking fought our ass off through 5 and 6 goddamn lockouts to get to a point where there's where we protect the integrity of the talent.
Yeah, sends the language there, but still, I played that before. The NFL, the only guaranteed contracts at both teams, I want to say, regretted those contracts. The Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson, the $250 guaranteed. Now they're looking to possibly get out of that. Kirk Cousins, $90 million guaranteed. Nothing really came of that. He's now moved on to another team here. It'll help teams get out of bad contracts. I think give incentives to players who play 82 games, 76-game incentive, 68-game incentive, playoff incentives. In other words, you're taking away the guaranteed contracts, but you're putting incentives on playing games, winning, getting to the playoffs, winning playoff series. You get an incentive for each round you get. That would be put into your contract. And, of course, the new NBA rule that is already in effect. So some of this is going to get addressed, folks. It's going to get addressed here. This rule's been put into play. I've got so many screenshots today. The new NBA CBA agreement requires 20 minutes and then in at least 63 games, between 15 and 20 minutes in 2 games, to become eligible for MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, All NBA teams, and that affects a player's contract. So already some of this is already being put into motion there. You just got to make these contracts non-guaranteed. I'll say the same thing for MLB. It helps you have more flexibility. You move off bad contracts. Teams can get better faster. Even if you got to go through a lockout, we're doing some restructuring right now in the country. You got audits and stuff. You've got this government efficiency thing. That's what needs to happen in the NBA. It needs some strong leadership at the top, even if it possibly requires getting a new commissioner. Okay? So that's number one. Take away the guaranteed contracts, more incentives to play, more incentives to win, essentially. Number two, marketing of players. Marketing of players, NBA and TV partners still marketing older players because we don't know the young players, the ones that are young that are stars and upcoming, like Victor Wembanyama, like Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards. He says, listen, the face of the league is going to be Victor Wembanyama. He's an American-born guy. Stephen A. Smith was like, hey, listen, man, we can't have the face of the league being a foreign-born player. Well, it's probably going to be, whether you like it or not, Stephen A. Smiths of the world, of Victor Wembanyama, a French-born player. That's why De'Aaron Fox pushed his way out, demanded that trade there from Sacramento. He knows that Wembanyama's up and coming, the 7'3", skillful big man. So the marketing of players. I mean, again, the league is still hanging on to mid-30s Steph Curry and 40-year-old LeBron James. The more exciting players are, I just mentioned, Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, the Joker from Denver. So the NBA needs to change the rules. They need to change the rules to 3 years out of high school. You don't necessarily have to go to college. Although we saw guys like Dalton Kincaid, Carlos, who's contributing quite well for the LA Lakers. He took some NIL money instead of playing overseas ball. He took some NIL money and stayed transferred. Remember, he went to the University of Tennessee. He wasn't originally at Tennessee. So if you do that, per se, 3 years like the NFL, out of high school, you don't necessarily have to go to college, but college plays a lot of incentive. College plays a lot of incentive with the growing of the NIL now here in the Southeastern Conference. The college game is better than ever. You got the number 1 and number 2 teams because it's starting to turn a profit for schools, kind of like it used to just be NFL or college football turning profits in college. Now you have college basketball, and a lot of these big-time coaches are down here now, which means it would be better to keep those players there for a few more years, not just development. I want them to be more developed. Look at Luka Doncic. Look at Wembanyama. Those guys are more developed now than our American-born players coming right into the league. You want to have those young American-born players to come into the league more polished. And also you want to have the Caitlin Clark effect there. You want to have the Caitlin Clark effect. Of course, Carlos, we will talk about this tomorrow, but you can comment tonight. We will go back and forth. This is going to be one of the questions. What do you think the NBA should do? But my thing is, I think that they should 3 years out of college or 20 or how does high school or 21, mainly for the marketing purposes, developmental purposes as well. I think we would have a better chance of being able to compete with the foreign markets there and have better players. Cooper Flag there out of Duke needs to stay. He's talking about maybe staying another year at Duke, having a really good year there. I would love to see him stay 2 more years at Duke here and be ready and come out here in 2027. So that would be my next. That's number 2, okay? So for marketing purpose and developmental, not just developmental, marketing purposes, so the audiences can follow them for college to pro like we do. A lot of talk about Schroeder, Sanders, and Cam Ward. I can't wait to see what those guys look like. They're arguing in workouts now. So we saw those players in college. Same thing for the college game, okay? That's number 2. Number 3, players, coaches need to talk basketball with media, pregame, postgame press conferences only. The league, at any league sanctioned event, you can only talk about basketball injury-related questions. No social issues, no politics. You can't have Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr up there dogging out the president-elect and insulting half of the country. You can't have LeBron James up there leaking out a cop's name for a shooting in Cincinnati, and he didn't know the whole story behind that, and really irritating the general public there. I think that does take a big effect. I've talked to people personally, said I will not watch the NBA because of that. You got to get out of those social issues like that. On your own time, I'm commissioner, I'm telling you, on your own time, you can do whatever you want to do. But when you have the NBA logo back here, when you have the Spurs logo back here, you cannot do that sort of thing. That is not what we're in the business for. I was just, Jenny Paul here, she was saying that her dad was of a Jewish descent, and he just didn't talk about his faith then due to the due to all the bigotry towards Jewish people in that day. But she said also, not just because of that, you just don't want to talk about any type of religion and politics. I'm a spiritual person myself, but I don't shove anything down people's throats. So you got to cut off your Steve Kerrs, your Greg Popovich, and your LeBrons of the world of doing that. That creates a negative atmosphere. And what the penalty would be for that, for say, we'll fine your organization a big chunk of money. And if you do that, and that money will be more and more and more. And if you keep doing that, the league will start taking away draft picks. If you want to stay down that road, it don't matter if it's the commissioner's politics or any of the owner's politics or vice versa. We want to get that stuff out of. We want to get that poison, that cancer out of the sport here, and get it about the game of basketball. It's a great game of basketball. It's about unity. It brings communities together. It doesn't. You don't want to tear people apart there. And again, reporters that want to push that to get a good soundbite for ESPN or Fox Sports or whoever. If you continue to prowl the players and coaches about non-NBA related questions, your press pass will be revoked. We will revoke your press pass. This is a private organization. It's not the First Amendment of the United States or anything. You do not have a right to say that. So if you continue to push those narratives, your press pass will be revoked. So that's number 3. Okay. Like I said, with the LeBron stuff. Number 4. Okay, season tip-off. I've always said this before. The season tips off around, Carlos, Halloween. Halloween is when college football is almost at an apex because you're getting really close to the conference championship game and right into the World Series is around Halloween, right? The World Series is right there. You don't want to, and of course, you got the NFL. The NFL's king out of over 125, 30 million people watch the NFL. You're competing with Major League Baseball at its apex. You're competing with the NFL that's king of all sports. And you're in the busiest sports calendar time of the year. You do not want to tip off at Halloween. You want to push that closer to Christmas time when baseball's already done and college football's done. They've done had their conference championship game. You're going to compete some with the NFL, but you can put the games around that. And then when you go to your playoffs and finals, those will be in no man's land. July, early August. Preseason football is terrible. Nobody watches that crap. You can have all that real estate to yourself. You said, well, people's on vacation. We've got phones, devices, folks. This is 2025. You can watch the game anywhere. You can stream the game anywhere. You're going to get more ratings, okay? Non-guaranteed contracts, 3 years out of high school. No politics here. And move the season around. I still say you can play 82 games. You can move the season past the normal starting time. You do not want to compete with those other sports there. The NBA is a great sports. And throw in a number 5 here. Bring back physicality and hand checking like Eddie Johnson said here. Bring that back here. Bring some pick and roll back here. Make it like the 80s. You still have the skill player. The game has never been more skilled than it has been. I don't think it's going to kill the game if you brought back some hand checking here. I'm not saying hack people, but you want to throw in a little bit of hand checking. I don't think there'll be any issue there. I think if you apply these principles right now, and this game would be, they would be a step ahead. They could potentially catch the NFL. You say why? Because they've already invested into the global markets. The NFL is still a little bit behind about going global, not like the NBA. So this would explode the ratings in less than 5 years. We would be having a different conversation. It wouldn't be the laughingstock that it is right now. You wouldn't have Charles Barkley, Draymond Green, Kevin Garnett, players, not just guys like me, players, current players, former players, people that work with the NBA and TNT there. talking about the league. I don't know if you have the right commissioner to do that. You need a stern type of guy to man up and do something like that. That's how I think you could fix the NFL or NBA, excuse me. Carlos says the NBA face is not important. It's just you want to have more players that you follow from college to the pros, so the young players kind of have some momentum. Kind of like Caitlin Clark. There is a problem with the NBA when you have a college women's basketball star getting more eyeballs than the NBA. Okay, as long as there's better competitions, players step up. The game has changed so far. The NBA has changed, so it's better if the NBA moves away from trying to pin one guy down. This is an issue with Major League Baseball, Trout, Ohtani. Yeah, and that is definitely something I want to get to with here in just a second here. So that's if I'm commissioner of the world, that's what I do. Speaking of Major League Baseball, Carlos, I'll ask you about this one as well. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, some of you older audiences, my age, older, you remember Vlad Guerrero Sr. played a lot of his good years. I want to say with the Expos here, I thought Guerrero Jr. hit 48 home runs one year. And, I thought to myself, man, is he better than his dad? And I forgot how good. Now, we all know, for those of us that watched baseball back in them days, we all know that Guerrero Jr., Guerrero Sr. had one of the best arms in the history of the game. I mean, you did not run on Vladimir Guerrero. I could still recall Guerrero, the father, players, and the commentators will comment on it, run past first, and they would look and see where Guerrero was because he had such an arm strength, But Dad, 16 seasons, 318 batting average, did win an MVP, 8 Silver Slugger awards, 318. 449 home runs, just strong as an ox. Now, son here has a 288 career batting average, plays first base, did hit 48 home runs. Back in 21, he had 30 last year, 26 the year before that. But, he is he's hitting around 300. Vlad Jr. reminds me of Frank Thomas there, another guy that played first base that could hit for power and hit for average. That's a rare in today's game here. He'll be 26 in next month. He's not going to be able to come up with anything. He's not going to be able to come up with anything with the Toronto Blue Jays. He's going to be a highly sought-after free agent. And, I'm going to ask this to Carlos tomorrow here. Is there a team that can sign, and by the way, and you say, well, this won't come up. ESPN reported this a few days ago. This won't come up until November, but check that, folks. The season will start around March 27th. They end the March, and that's another thing that Major League Baseball needs to move their season up to March 1st, but that's a whole different topic. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So the season will start in March per se, but their trade deadline is in July. Their trade deadline is in July, and I expect the Blue Jays to trade him. They're not just going to let him walk in free agency. They would trade him to a contender. And my question to you all, is there a team out there, not named the LA Dodgers, not named the New York Yankees, that could sign Vlad Guerrero Jr. and actually become competitive and and win a championship and it not hurt the team financially due to revenue driven. Look at Carlos. He's hyped up about that. He said, yeah, we can hit that topic tomorrow. So I started looking around. Could Atlanta Braves make a run at him? The Braves, during my lifetime, following the Atlanta Braves here in Nashville, here in the South, we would get excited when they would get a guy like a Fred McGriff in 1992 or 93. Get a guy when he's slightly past his prime, like a Gary Sheffield in the late 90s and early 2000s. It would be nice to see Atlanta Braves get a guy when he's actually coming into his prime. Will be 26 in a month, just like a Juan Soto. I think the Braves, the revenue, they should be able to make a run at this guy, So I looked at that. I just mentioned a guy like the Braves. Could Steve Cohen, could he cough up a little bit more money and get another leg up in the arms race with the Yankees and go after, even after paying Soto that fortune he paid him, now go out and get a Vlad Guerrero Jr., put him at first. Or maybe you can move a guy like that around. You could DH him. You could DH in the NL now. I think you could probably play him in right. But we'll see. I mean, you got to talk to him and see. Yes, he's going to command a it's going to be some crazy contract. We already know it's going to be $500 to $700 million. It is what it is. I've looked up some of the other ones. What about The Athletic? Mentioned teams like the Yankees. The Athletic talks about what are the Yankees' chances of this. They say the Yankees would be a strong fit for Guerrero. Paul Goldschmidt will be a free agent after this season, and first base in the Bronx will be wide open for long term. Although Guerrero previously said he would never play for the Yankees, he later softened his comments and said he would consider it if the and I'm adding this, I'm paraphrasing, if they show him the money. Like what was the name of that Jerry Maguire there, Carlos? The Athletic says, I'm not sure Steve Cohen and President Baseball Operations David Stearns are going to be interested in another free agency war after dropping $765 on Soto. I don't know about that. Athletic talks about the Rangers. Now, the Rangers were in the World Series a few years back. It says the Rangers are entertaining a new era for their television and streaming rights and probably need to get a better idea of the future revenue before bidding on Guerrero. But on the surface, he looks like a perfect fit for Texas. Trade acquisition, Jake Berger will play first base for this season, but he can move to DH and play as a backup role, first base as well. This is and then CBS says this about the Atlanta Braves. Talking about Vlad Guerrero, folks. Matt Olson is locked up through 2029, meaning the Braves don't need a first baseman and their resources would be better used elsewhere. The article says, I do find it interesting that Marcell Ozuna, their DH, is set to hit free agency in 25. After the 25 season, that's not good, and has been greatly productive at the plate in the last few seasons. We don't know how the 2025 is going to go down, but it's possible the Braves enter the offseason feel like they need a huge bat. It just doesn't feel like the Braves like move. I think they should. I think they should break the mold and try to make that move. A team like the Braves. I think Houston should make that jab at him if I can find it. I read something on maybe Houston could take a stab at him as well, although they haven't been known to do that. I I thought I had a screenshot on Houston, but I will say this. Obviously, they've won without making those big plays here. Not sure about a Milwaukee. Not sure about a Houston. Not sure about a Houston, maybe. A Detroit. They just don't seem to generate enough money there. But it would be nice to see somebody not out of these mega markets here. Now, I know San Diego has spent a lot of money in the past, but maybe they're spent out. I mean, they've got about 3 or 4 monster contracts as well. And Carlos says, look at the top 8 teams and see. You got to go with that. And if I'm Vlad, I'm looking at a situation where I think I can win. I mean, they did mention the Nationals. The Athletic says at some point the Nationals will need to start spending again. Guerrero would be a perfect fit with Washington, as he would provide immediate protection for their young hitters from James Woods to Dylan Cruz to C.J. Abrams. Guerrero's positive demeanor and attitude would boost the Washington clubhouse. So that would be a really good player there. Nobody mentioned Philadelphia. Bryce Harper's contract's pretty big. The Cubs have shown up here. The Giants have shown up here. The Giants always have pretty good pitch in there. I can see the Giants do. I wouldn't want to play in California for the Giants. Only team I'd want to play in California for would be obviously the Dodgers. Now we know the A's are moving and they're cheap as all get out. There's just a lot of teams like Cincinnati. I'm just not going to a small market, not unless I know that they've got very strong ownership that's really willing to spend the money and take the hit. I just don't want to make a lot of money. Do you really want to be like Mike Trout and not compete for World Series championships? Would you rather play like Shohei Ohtani and do it that way, where you can put off a lot of this money and take the first 7-8 years of like a 10-year contract at a modest $8 to $10 million a year, and just put off the rest of it towards the backload that contract there, so the Dodgers can be as competitive as they can be. So obviously, like they did last year, and went on and win it all. So if I'm Vlad, I'm looking at those type of options. There's not a better insurance policy right now than Major League Baseball. Ask Bobby Bonilla and some of the former MLB players. It's just a pretty good, interesting way to look at it. Carlos says he learned from his pops who spent time with the Angels. I'm just not going to go to the Angels. I'm not going to go. I would have to. Now, St. Louis is a very well-run organization, but I would have to look and see what I've got around me and what they're willing to do. Somebody mentioned Boston. I've been driving Uber, and I've picked up quite a few Bostonians here in Nashville downtown, and they're saying that owner is getting super cheap up there, that family, that they really need to sell the team. And I never thought I would say that about the Red Sox going back 20 years when they were heavily, heavily competitive with the Yankees back in the day, player for player. Now they've went super cheap ever since they've got rid of Mookie Betts about 7-8 years ago now. So this is going to be an interesting. I still think that Vlad, being the upbringing that he has got, I think he's a guy that that will ascend as a player. Okay. He can hit for power, 48 home runs a few years ago. He can hit for average, 300 to 317 batting average. That's going to be an interesting storyline coming into the summer. It's not Shohei Ohtani interesting, but it is interesting. Oh, man. I get all hyped up talking about free agents. I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to me. Okay. Another story here. Now, for those of you back in the day, For you big time NFL people like myself here, there's a story out of the Dolphins here. It just grew and grew and grew. Happened, I want to say this happened back in 2012. We're talking, 12, 13 years ago, 2013 or whatever. Jonathan Martin, he was a left tackle there out of with the Dolphins, leaving the team, claiming that, and his parents got involved too, that Richie Incognito was bullying him. And he mentioned one of the other players here. I think it was Pouncey, but really Richie Incognito here. And it became a big story. It was a big investigation. And then it just grew into more of a, beyond the fact that there was just a bullying scandal and whatnot, it really made the Dolphins as a whole look bad. And, I've talked to a few guys doing security over the years, through a friend of a friend that played with the Dolphins, said they're one of the worst run fly-by-night organizations. He said he would put them up with the Daniel Snyder, we're talking 15 years ago, with the Daniel Snyder like Washington Redskin organization, just really bad. And all that came about here. Martin ends up getting moved to the Niners, retired early. Then later on, a story comes out 2018 about Jonathan Martin making all these threats, and he was arrested, and his parents were worried about him, to people that he wanted to kill or whatever. And I think it was some online post or whatever, kind of have a mental breakdown. That's almost 7 years ago for that. So now it comes out over the weekend that Jonathan Martin essentially is saying he made all this stuff up, and he don't think he was being bullied. And here's my take on all that. My take on that is, and I looked up his, I looked up his size. Jonathan Martin, folks, is 6'5", 300 plus pounds, man. Okay. And it's hard for someone of that massive size. I'm 5'8", 165. On a Thanksgiving weekend, I'm 170. I couldn't imagine being that big, and that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 3 bills plus. And even if another guy's that kind of height, me being afraid of anybody to be bullying me. And I just don't think, reading that Adam Schefter ESPN story over the weekend, that I think he was too proud. He was too proud to admit that he actually did get bullied. I think he walked back a lot of that because of his pride and whatnot. The guys went back to school, and I think he's some kind of entrepreneur now, getting his PhD and everything. He's gotten his life back on track. And then you've got Richie Incognito coming out acting like, hey, that run my reputation and my life and all that, blah, blah, blah. You're seeing him spout off on the internet, on the X out. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, this is Richie Incognito, okay? This guy's not a saint. Maybe it was, air quote, exaggerated a little bit. But Richie Incognito, I've been following him since he was with the Rams, okay, back in 2009, 2010. This guy was voted the second most dirtiest player in 2012 in the NFL. So there is some truth to that. He was not a saint. He admits he was not a saint. He admits he had some growing up to do. So two things can be true, okay? Incognito says the truth about Jonathan Martin. He couldn't. Incognito played, I want to say he played a good 12 years in the NFL. almost 15 years, 14, 15 years in the NFL. He says Martin couldn't cut it in the NFL. Probably couldn't cut it. It's tough. It's tough. I think two things can be true. I think he probably couldn't cut it. And I think that Cognito did have some bully in him. Okay. I do think that because I know that he was recognized as a dirty player. You can see it. I've watched him play. I've watched him and Cal Vandenbosch get into it. For the Tennessee Titans, Vandenbosch pushed him down like, if you want to do something, big boy, let's do it. He was a speedster defensive end for the Tennessee Titans back in those days, back when Chris Johnson was just playing great football. I think it was that year. I remember watching the game, watching Incognito bounce around. Now, Cognito's got his life back together. He's an offensive line coach. He's an offensive line coach for the Raiders now. I mean, he's turned into a coach, and Martin's got, he's went back to school and gotten everything together. But the idea to really lean into one side or the other, saying that Cognito was some kind of victim or whatever, is nonsense. I think there's a little bit of truth in everything, and I think people should actually look at it for what it is. Martin didn't want to admit that, maybe he should have done more about it. And dealt with Cognito or whatever, with some of his pranks and maybe some type of hazing or whatever you want to say. Which, by the way, I was never for that. I think rookie hazing, and I think it is actually, but I think it should be totally banned across the NFL. You don't see that a lot. I used to see it a lot of Hard Knocks, rookie hazing and all that. Now I just don't. Now stuff like singing in front of I know Hard Knocks, you sing in front of the team, your team song, or I think that's fine. But anything else, as far as doing pranks or something and making them carry your jersey pads, and I think that's stupid. I don't believe in none of that stuff, But having a little fun with the rookies, that's fine. But anything beyond that is a bunch of nonsense, and it wouldn't be allowed on my particular football team. But a lot being said about all that. Speaking of the NFL, okay, now this came out today. This is why I said the NBA should emulate the NFL. The salary cap could be as high as $281 million next season, according to NFL and Rappaport. It is higher than what it was expected to be. It's going up $25-30 million a year. You usually go to about 10. So it's taking a big jump here, and there's a story out of Cincinnati with that jump here. And by the way, Joe Burrow is saying that, hey, we need to get our guys. He's come out publicly over the past few days and saying, it'd be nice to get our guys all even. And I said this, I hinted at this the other day. Might have been last week. I don't know. But it's got to kind of gather some steam. That he said, listen, we would adjust salaries and everything. I adjust my salary to bring back Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Henderson. Now, Henderson's a little older. I don't know why he's saying this stuff, but there's a report now, Jeremy Fowler at ESPN, the Bengals are embarking on ambitious offseason, aiming for deals with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Henderson, sources say. That starts with Higgins and the franchise tag and can't let him walk, per source. So they're looking to do so. The old man is hearing the outcry, And listen, I was thinking about this the other day when this came about, and you can hear, and of course I said this a few months ago. I still stand by this, that Joe Burrow more often than not, should not sign any more extensions in Cincinnati. Even if he takes some kind of pay cut or contract restructure, that doesn't necessarily mean a pay cut. This could be alternating to backload the contract to perhaps win a Super Bowl in the next year or so. They've got a new defensive coordinator, Al Golden. They've got maybe they could do something in the draft or whatever. But I still think that Burrow should play this contract out and get the heck out of Cincinnati. That being said, if this Jeremy Fowler report does not come to fruition and Mike Brown, who's the general manager, owner, 80-something-year-old guy, doesn't get it done with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Trey Henderson, do you, if you're the Tennessee Titans, call Cincinnati because Brian Callahan used to be the offensive coordinator with Cincinnati? Do you offer them the number 1 pick overall with the package of players? I know that's not enough to get a mega star like Joe Burrow. I get it. But you start with the number 1 overall pick. You could take Cam Ward or Schroeder Sanders, perhaps, and you could sign them then because you would take Burrow's contract completely off your books. And then maybe Tennessee, who maybe throw in a T'Vondre Sweat there from that's the defensive tackle they got out of Texas. You say, why throw in T'Vondre Sweat? Because I know Mike Brown is a cheap SOB. That will put them on a rookie contract with their defensive tackle, which they desperately needed since they got rid of DJ Ritter last year. That was one of the biggest problems. They had no push in the middle. They had outside push, but they had no push up the middle. They had no Jalen Carter to push that middle like they did in the Super Bowl. They had none of that. So you can offer them Jeffrey Simmons, but then you had to take Jeffrey Simmons' contract. You see what I'm saying? Either or, and then you throw in a first-round pick next year, that might get Mike Brown's attention from Cincinnati. Now, I know that he's not going to do that. That old man would die. He would die right there on the spot before he would give up Joe Burrow. The Dolphins called and offered a massive package when Joe Burrow was available before the draft, and Cincinnati hung up the phone. But it's all food for thought. If you're management with the Titans, you do your due diligence and you try to get that quarterback. I mean, there's a connection with the offensive coordinator. You try to get it done. You know you're probably going to get scolded at. You just tell whoever's doing it, or it's Mike Brown or somebody else. They only got 4 people from what I hear, compared to like 20 scouts for Philadelphia per se. But anyways, you just say, listen, I'm just doing my due diligence here. Can we work out something for Burrow if you can't get these numbers worked out? I don't think that's a big deal. I really don't. Other news, Greg Sankey. This is one I could ask Carlos about. Greg Sankey from the commissioner of the SEC, he claims that there should be, and the Big Ten's, Tony, I think his name is Petit, agrees that the college football playoff seeding needs to change. Following a joint meeting between the athletic directors, representatives on Wednesday, the Commissioner Greg Sankey, Big Ten Commissioner, agreed that teams are seated in the 12-team college football should change this fall, while voices of the 2 wealthiest and most powerful conferences certainly carry weight. Changes for 2025 have to be unanimously agreed upon the 12 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director. So I mentioned this as far as changes per se with that. The teams that actually get the top seeds, that get those bye weeks, those first games should be at home, okay? Boise State, just because you win your conference doesn't mean if you're like 11th or 12th, you should not host you shouldn't be ranked above another power conference team that, air quote, finishes stronger ranked than you are, Now, if everybody has a bunch of losses, that's different. But if you finished a regular season around 10th or 11th, you shouldn't have any advantage over a team who did not, at a power conference like an SEC or Big Ten, who did not win their conference championship, because the road is much more harder to do. They've got to work out the kinks. Oregon should not have had to play Ohio State in their first game and they get rolled like that. And if they would have had to play Ohio State and this thing would have been right, they should have had to play Ohio State up in Eugene, not at a neutral site game. So there's a lot of mistakes. Two biggest commissioners there said something about it. I think that would be interesting. So anyways, if you like the show, share the show. I'll be back tomorrow with the Mad New Yorker. We'll talk about some of these topics, and you never know. Something may come up between now and then. We'll add that in the program as well. I greatly appreciate it. And folks, stay safe out there. I know it's a little icy in spots. We didn't get hit as bad as I thought we were going to get hit here in Nashville, but still a little icy and snowy, big part of the country here. So I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, here on the Real Sports Scope.